An electronic musical instrument is a musical instrument that produces its sounds using electronics. These instruments create sound by outputting an electrical audio signal that ultimately drives a loudspeaker. An electronic instrument may include a user interface for controlling its sound, often by adjusting the pitch, frequency, or duration of each note. The user interface is the space where interaction between humans and machines occur. The GUI is called the graphical user interface, which is used in computers. Leon Theremin developed an electrical instrument in 1919 that grabbed the attention of numerous composers. This device was patented in 1928. It was and is still controlled without the contact by the player. Two metal antennas control the theremin. The antennas perceive the position of the player's hand and control oscillators for frequency with one of the hands. The other hand is used to control the volume or amplitude on the other antenna. This instrument sends out electrical signals from the theremin and are amplified and then sent to a loudspeaker. This instrument is easy to learn, however extremely difficult to master. Modern-day theremins can also be used as a MIDI, or MIDI. The Oddness Martineau was created by Maurice Martineau in the early 1900s, approximately 1928. It is similar in sound to the theremin. It works when the artist depresses keys or adjusting the rings. No sounds are produced at first, however. The user's left hand is positioned in a small draw, which determines the musical dynamics. A recessed key determines the dynamic of the level. The fashion in which it is pressed decides the attack of the note. Quick taps produce staccato articulations. Control taps produced are used to play legato. Each switch has its own sound that can be added to the chorus. This is similar to the organ. These are a few pictures that depict what a theremin looks like. The Novacord was first commercially manufactured synthesizer built by Hammond Organ Company from 1938 to 1942. The instrument featured 163 vacuum tubes and weighed 500 pounds. The instrument's use of envelope control is perhaps the most significant distinction between the modern synthesizers we have today. Analog synthesis was from 1950 to 1980, and its synthesizer is the most popular of the electronic instrument family. It has the ability to generate many different sounds. It utilized analog circuitry, in particular voltage-controlled amplifiers, oscillators, and filters. RCA were the first to produce experimental devices to synthesize music in the 1950s. The Mark II music synthesizer, housed at the Columbia-Princeton Electronic Music Center in 1957, was designed by Herbert Bellar and Harry Olson. It consisted of a room-sized array of interconnected sound components. It was only capable of producing music by programming, similar to a mechanical player piano, but capable of generating a wider variety of sounds. The Moog Company pioneered the commercial manufacture of modular voltage-controlled analog synthesizer systems. The Moog began to develop his synthesizer systems after he met educator and composer Herbert Deutsch at the conference in late 1963. Over the next year, with encouragement from Myron Hoffman of the University of Toronto, Moog and Deutsch developed the first modular voltage-controlled subtractive synthesizer. The technological development that led to the creation of the Moog synthesizer was the invention of the transistor, which enables researchers like Moog to develop electronic musical systems that were considerably smaller, cheaper, and far more reliable than the earlier vacuum tube-based systems. Moog's first customized modular systems were built during 1965 and demonstrated at a summer workshop at Moog's Transmenberg, New York factory in August 1965. During 1967, Moog introduced the first production model, the 900 series. The Moog synthesizer began to gain wider attention in the music industry after it was demonstrated at the Monterey International Pop Festival in June 1967. It attracted the interest of several of the major acts who attended, including the Byrds and Simon and Garfunkel. This quickly built into a steady stream of studio session work in Los Angeles and a recording contract with Warner Brothers. The commercial breakthrough of a Moog recording was made by Wendy Carlos, the 1968 record Switched on Bach, which became one of the highest-selling classical music records of its era. Many other big-name bands used the Moog as well. Dick Hyman's recording of The Minotaur became the first Moog-based Billboard Top 40 in 1967. The Beatles' Maxwell's Silver Hammer, Because Here Comes the Sun, and I Want You all also utilized a unique Moog sound. The Mini Moog was the first product to really solidify the synthesizer's popular image as a keyboard instrument, and became the most popular monophonic synthesizer in the 1970s, selling approximately 13,180 units between 1970 and 1981. It featured improvements such as scaled-down, simplified, and self-contained unit design for use in live performances. The Mini Moog was quickly taken up by leading rock and electronic musical groups such as Yes, Tangerine Dream, and Gary Newman. As of 2006, there were more than 15 companies making Moog-style synthesizer modules. In March 2006, Moog Music unveiled the Little Fatty analog synthesizer. The original Mini Moog, however, remained so popular that they regularly sell for over US $3,000 in online auction sites. With the mass production of computers came an era where music and computers worked together to create sounds and music. A digital synthesizer is a synthesizer that uses digital signal processing, DSP, techniques to make musical sounds. Digital signal processing, DSP, is concerned with the representation of signals by a sequence of numbers or symbols and the processing of these signals. The very earliest digital synthesis experiments were made with general-purpose computers as part of an academic research into sound generation. Early commercial digital synthesizers used simple hard-wired design circuitry to implement techniques such as additive synthesis and FM synthesis, becoming commercially available in the late 1970s. FM synthesis is a form of audio synthesis that involves longitudinal waves and the change of frequency of those waves. In 1983, Yamaha created the first standalone synthesizer. It was called a DX7, and it used FM synthesis. It was developed by John Chowning at the Stanford University. In music, sampling is the act of taking a portion or sample of one sound recording and reusing it as an instrument or a different sound recording of a song. The widespread use of sampling in popular music originated with the birth of hip-hop music in New York in the late 1970s. An important new development was the advent of computers for the purpose of composing music, as opposed to manipulating or creating sounds. Stoic music is a method of composing that comes from mathematical probability systems. It was developed by Ioannis Nekis. Different probability algorithms were used to create a piece under a set of parameters. Music N Series was written by Max Matthews at Bell Labs. It was a computer program for generating digital audio waveforms through direct synthesis. MIDI, or MIDI, stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It enables electronic musical instruments, such as synthesizers, drum machines, guitars, etc., computers, and other electronic instruments, MIDI controllers, sound cards, samplers, to communicate and link with each other. MIDI does not transmit an audio signal. It works by sending messages about pitch and intensity and controls signals for volume, vibrato, panning, cues, and clock signals to set the tempo. These are some modern musical instruments. Increasing power and decreasing cost of sound-generating electronics, combined with the standardization of the MIDI and open sound control musical performance description languages, has divided three musical instruments into music controllers and music synthesizers. By far the most common musical controller is the musical keyboard. Other controllers include the guitar-like Syntax, which is located at the top right, and the wind synthesizer at the top left. The reactable, on the bottom left, is a round translucent table used in a darkened room and appears as a blacklit display. By placing blocks called tangibles on the table and interfacing with the visual display via the tangibles or fingertips, a virtual modular synthesizer is operated, created using sound effects. The K-Oscillator or the K-Oscillator Pro are compact instruments where the position of a finger on the touchpad controls two note characteristics. Usually the pitch is changed with the left-right motion and the tonal property, filter, or other parameter changes with an up and down motion. The touchpad can be set to different musical scales and keys. The instrument can record a repeating loop of adjustable lengths set to any tempo, and new loops of sound can be layered on top of existing ones. This lends itself to electronical dance music, but is more limited for controlled sequences of notes. As a pad on a regular co-oscillator, it's featureless.
I could watch you for a lifetime.